and yes, but no. All right. Well, welcome to Hydrant. You're alive, and it just told me that. So we're excited about what God is doing. You are here tonight because you are interested in a table, which is a pay as you can restaurant. Can you just click that it goes live on the table as well? That's really where we need it to go, and not on Hydrant. I mean, it's fine, but you are here today, or you are watching online tonight because you are interested in the table, which is a pay-as-you-can restaurant that is coming to Goldsboro hopefully soon. So I just want to open up with prayer first, and we'll get started. God, we are grateful. We are grateful for you and what you are doing. God, you are doing something new here in Goldsboro. God, and we are excited to be on the front lines journeying with other churches and other businesses and other places to do your work here. So God, will you bless tonight? Will you bless the people who are here? God, and will you just direct our paths? We want nothing but what you want here. And so God, we open up our hearts to you. We ask for direction and inspiration. God, we ask for mountains to be moved. In your name we pray. Amen. Well, so for those of you who might not know, especially online, my name is Liz, and I am the lead pastor here at Hydrant. I know a bunch of you already know that, but we have Mike, who is our executive pastor, and Scott, who is our worship pastor here with us tonight as well. But Hydrant Church has been a church that has cared for and loved people from its start in 2009. 5 years ago, we took a hard look at what was needed on 111, and we realized that the surrounding area was desperate for food. Most of the people that live on 111 South live in poverty. And so we wanted to help take care of that. And so we started a food pantry. In fact, not just we started one, but our teens all started it. They were completely in charge. Their job was to set it up, to run it, to organize it, to get donations, all those things. And they did a stellar job for somewhere around 4.5 years running our food pantry. And in that time, we partnered with another food pantry in Mount Olive, and between the team's efforts and the food pantry in Mount Olive, we fed about 40 families a month. Now, it was a good start, but we could tell that something else was happening. More needed to be done, but it got harder and harder to go all the way to Mount Olive to pick up our food. And so we came before the church and we said, would you own this? Would you supply the funds? Would you help us to make this happen? And so 2 years ago, Hydrant became a completely self-sufficient food pantry. And God has done some really crazy things through that. He has provided in ways that some days I still don't understand. And John, I'm sure, John is the director of our food pantry. Every day we come up and we're like, how did that happen, right? We'll show up, Mike and I'll show up, and where did this food come from? We have no idea, no clue where it came from. And that's an exciting thing because it means that people who aren't even here are owning the food pantry. So fast forward a little bit, pandemic hit, and we had to change how we did everything. It was really hard. We had set up a miniature mart in our office building, but there was no way for the people to come in and get food and stay safe. And so we had to do something different. And we started a food line where we packed boxes or bags, I don't know why that word escaped me, but boxes or bags filled with food in order to help people get food. And so we would they would drive through the line, we would put them in their car, and they would be on their way. But during that time, even though we fed 2,500 families, it just wasn't enough. We've been labeled a disaster relief pantry. The National Food Bank was sending us food by the literal truckload. If you have not ever seen 3 pallets of milk, you have no idea. Or a pallet of Burt's Bees lotion that we still somehow have 2 years later. It's insane, right? Like, God was doing so much. But we realized it was still hollow. There was still something missing. We were feeding more people than ever, but we weren't actually doing what we had set out to do. In Wayne County, we have 120,000 people, but 20.2 of them live below the poverty line. The national average for that poverty line should be 12.3. It's a problem. It's a major, major problem. That means that 24,400 people live below the poverty line in Wayne County. Below the poverty line means that they most likely cannot go to the store and get a week's worth of groceries. Most likely it means that their kids are being fed by the school system because they cannot provide for it. And so we started to realize that food insecurity was a real issue here, right? And what we know about food insecurity is if you don't know where your next meal comes from, then your brain literally goes into something called fight or flight mode. Now, for those of you who have studied psychology or human development, you may recognize that, but essentially when your basic needs are not being met, your brain is not capable of thinking of the next thing. It chemically goes into something, and you are fighting to survive. It's a natural thing that happens. And so when people's basic needs aren't being met, they can't do things like find a job, find housing, they can't get off drugs, they can't get off of alcohol. They can't deal with their mental health problems. They can't restore relationships. And so they remain broken, depleted. Our food pantry was striving to help fix the problem, but it's not enough. Our food pantry had gone from feeding 40 families to 75 families per month. But we were running out of food every single week. The crisis in Wayne County was getting worse because of the pandemic. All of those that live below the poverty line in Wayne County, the average ages are 18 to 34-year-old females and ages 6 to 11 males. And I just realized I had a whole, look, this is why I shouldn't do things as, I'm so used to just like preaching, you know? So those are statistics. Well, I do need a clicker. Let's get that. Okay, so, but 18 to 34-year-old females, 6 to 11 males, which means is single mothers who are living below poverty, and nobody's helping them. And so it was time to step up. We took a look at this and we realized that we were feeding people physically, but not enough people. And we weren't even feeding them spiritually. We were just throwing food at a problem and hoping that it would change. So one day Pastor Mike came in, and it was in February, and he said, what if we did things differently? I'm all about doing things differently. I don't like to do things the same. If you've been here for more than a minute, you probably already know that, right? So if our vision is to feed people, Mike said, physically and spiritually, which that is our goal, and our goal is to connect them with God and others, fill them with His grace and truth, and overflow into the community, then we have to take a hard look at what we're doing. We have to connect them with more so that they can see their lives change and develop. And so he said, what if we start a pay-as-you-can restaurant? Now I think you really thought that I was going to tell you no, didn't you?
Well, I wasn't sure.
But you were pretty sure, right?
We're going to laugh.
Yeah. Instead of everything, I said, let's do it. But we got to pray about it for 2 weeks. Let's just pray about it and see what happens. Well, the next morning, I'm the first one to open my mouth and tell somebody about it. It's usually how it goes around here. Just in case you were wondering, that's how it is. It's the joy of being in my position, I think. Anyway, so the next morning, somebody from our community who did not go to church here came to donate some food because she had seen our food pantry sign. She didn't attend here. She'd never even been here before. She'd been just driving by looking for a place to donate. So we started to talk and helped her unload her food. And I felt God say, go ahead and tell her what's next. Okay, but it's not next. We don't know that yet, right? We don't know. He said, no, go tell her. Tell her what's next. And so I did. And instantly, she was like, me and my family are in. We're on board for this. And I'm still sitting there going, I don't know if it's going to happen. Are you sure? So I brought her over and we talked with Mike, and there was an instant connection, and Shelly became our first official board member. She's sick tonight, so she couldn't be here. But she, 1 month later, became our official first board member of the table. This confirmation from her and this excitement from her was exactly what we needed to spur on to the next endeavor. It wasn't long before we decided on a name, the table, because we had been going through something here at Hydrant where we wanted to gather around the table again. COVID had made it so we couldn't, and we decided it was time to gather around the table. But the table is so significant. The table is more than just a place to eat. At the dinner table is where lives are changed. It's where friends are made and families come together. Studies show that if your family eats together, you are 50% more likely to achieve your goals. Significant. That is significant. Jesus did a lot of his ministry at the table, and in fact, a lot of his miracles were centered around food. And if that's the example we want to follow, then that's the example we should follow, right? And so we decided to start pursuing the dream. From there, we continued to reach out to people. Hydrant's board quickly got on and approved the vision, and we started to reach out and talk to other pay-as-you-can restaurants in Raleigh, and they agreed to meet with us, and then soon they agreed to mentor us. They connected us with a 19 pay-as-you-can cafe network that also has agreed to mentor us. But during that meeting, as we connected with this pay-as-you-can restaurant, we realized that this is what God was calling Hydrant to. He was asking Goldsboro to invest in this. And we see then that we started to even dig further in and find out what our next steps were. And so just to give you a little idea of what those things are and what it is, a pay-as-you-can restaurant is a place for everyone to find community and be fed. It will primarily be ran by volunteers who are there to get to know people, serve them, and bring dignity into hard situations. There's 4 ways to pay at a pay-as-you-can cafe or restaurant, and this is so significant. In fact, I'm going to list them here, but I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit about them. But pay-as-you-can this is how things operate. This is the only way that we can make things happen. So the first is you'll pay the listed price. Each item on our menu will have a suggested price. The first, so this is the first way that you can pay, is to pay that suggested price. It will cover the cost of your food, and then it will help towards operating costs of the restaurant. The second is pay it forward. This allows for you to pay the listed price of the food and add an extra amount in order to pay for somebody else's food. This literally is what the restaurant hinges on, is that pay-it-forward mentality. In fact, at the restaurant in Raleigh, 60% of their income comes from this kind of giving. Okay? So it's just people, helping people out. There's no profit, there's no tips, there's no extra for anything other than to feed people. So this is the main way the restaurant will run, and it allows for us to give out more meals to those in need. The third is a pay nothing at all. This option is open to anyone, no questions. So when you come to the register, you'll list the ways that you can pay. They'll say, would you like to pay the listed, pay it forward, pay nothing, or pay while volunteering? You'll pick this one. We won't ask what currency your income. Are you sure you don't have $1? We won't ask any of those things. Awesome, you're on your way. See you later. Have a great day. No questions asked. The last one is pay by volunteering. Many people feel embarrassed by needing something. They don't want to ask for help. And so this option allows for you to literally do the dishes to pay your bill. How many of you ever joke to somebody, you gotta do the dishes, right? Well, we're gonna make that possible. There's been many times in my life where I wish I could have done the dishes in order to pay for the meal, right? But we're gonna make that possible. And so you will be able to pay for your meal or your bill by volunteering in some pre-listed ways. Now, you can't just jump in and cook, right? Like, you don't want me doing that. Ask Scott about my spaghetti sometime. Like, you don't want him, I promise you, right? But you could take out the trash. You can bus tables, you can fill water, you can sweep. There's many, many, many other things I'm learning, because I've never worked in a restaurant. I know, I'm a little spoiled. But I'm learning there are many things that you can do in a restaurant, and so there's many ways that you can help pay your bill. Mike, do you want to add anything to that pay-as-you-can idea? This is Mike's favorite part of the restaurant.
Nothing to add, just,
Mike.
I want everyone to realize the 4 ways to pay, because it's going to be something that it's going to be our mantra. It's going to be what we're after, because I've become compassionate about 4 ways to pay, and I think that it can transcend other places in our lives for ourselves and for others. And as you all buy into it, and I know many of you will immediately, you'll understand in all the different ways that 4 ways to pay can complete a program of giving that we've never really looked deeply into. So that's all I'm going to say at this point about that term, 4 ways to pay. So just realize how easy it rolls off the tongue, because I want everyone to be really comfortable with it.
Yeah, and we will have some flyers. I had car issues this morning, because if you know me, that's my life. And so I sat at Deacon Jones this morning instead of being able to get over to Staples. But we will have cards that talk about 4 ways to pay. And so as you're talking about this with people or whatever, we'll have cards that you can hand out. But so this is a huge endeavor, and we're still in the early phases. We're still in the early phases of all of this. But as we look to the future and we look towards what is happening, we hope to be up and running in a year. We have some grant applications out, and we have some different things in the works to be able to get us to that point. And so praying for financing and praying for all of those pieces. Once we get financing, then we can pick the location as a final. We have a place we're praying over, and some of you have been joining us in that prayer. But we don't have a specific place picked out, we have it picked out, but not purchased yet. How about that? But so we hope to be up and running within the year. So what is next? What happens next then? The next thing, we talked about one more, I'm really not good at slides. The next thing that we do is we start pop-ups. This is where the vision is casted and we're able to start telling people, but also raising friends. This is the biggest thing for us, is raising friends. It's not raising money. We're not going out and asking for a hand up. We're just asking you, hey, will you join us in this vision? Will you tell everybody you know about it? Will you share the Facebook posts? Will you pray with us? Because that's the only way this is going to happen. We're not asking for finances right now. We're going to let corporations do that, right? So pop-ups are a way that we can share that vision, and for Mike and I to hone the language of how this stuff is happening, because if you haven't noticed, this is the first time I've given a full presentation on this. I almost didn't live cast it, I'm not going to lie, because I don't want it out there for forever, right? They're telling me they can't hear the live, so we'll figure it out later. Maybe I won't have to worry about what I just said. Oh, God is good. Okay, so we're fundraising, and hopefully in that time fundraising from different corporations and grants and that kind of thing. Now, of course, if somebody comes to us and says, here's $5 for it, we're not going to turn it away, right? That's not what we're doing. But that's not the main goal. The main goal is to cast vision. And so actually, I'm going to let Mike talk again, because he is in charge of those pop-ups, and he's got some things in the works. So Mike, you want to tell us about what's going on with that?
Well, the pop-ups are going to begin at the farmer's market. And we've had some not being able to get started as quickly as we wanted to with it, because they kind of thought we wanted to do like a volunteer type thing and just go out there and make our presence known that way. And I said, no, that's not really what we want to do. We want to help you with your volunteers, but we want to come out here and make people understand what 4 ways to pay means when it comes to a pop-up or a pay-as-you-can restaurant. And so I think we have that resolved, and hopefully this weekend we'll be making some orangeades and lemonades out there, and that's our catch item, is going to be orangeades and lemonades throughout the summer, just so we can get that 15 to 30 seconds of someone's time so they can understand what we're talking about, where we're coming from. And and as that evolves, it will probably also go into maybe some more formal type things where, maybe we'll be in a restaurant or at an opening of some sort of thing downtown or something like that, or anything that you guys might suggest. You might say, hey, Mike, I got a great idea. Let's what if we go to Center Street Jam and try to do this while the Embers are singing, and you got to yell louder than they do? But, and I'll be there. But it's all kinds of ideas, and it's all of those ideas that make this work. And so the pop-ups are going to be things that we're also going to rely on you guys for, because as the momentum builds, we're going to want you guys, because we need the ordinary people that are just like us doing ordinary and extraordinary things with the way you're talking about this to your friends and the people that you talk to. And only you can do that, just like only I can get up here and stutter and stammer when I'm trying to talk. So that's really what the pop-ups are all about. And you'll be hearing that a lot also when we're talking about these pop-ups. So please don't hold back. If anybody has an idea, that's what we're all about. And I mean that.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't know the Hydrant staff very well, we're a very open staff. Like, we don't think that we know anything, really. And so we're just here to help facilitate and move things forward. But we love and want to hear ideas that you may have. Now, it doesn't always guarantee that we can do those ideas. We might know things that are going on in the works or reasons that we can't or whatever, our financial situation. But we are always open to ideas. So if you do know of what we just heard last night, some Freedom Festival or something is going on. Saturday. So we're too close for that one right now. But you guys may know of other ones that are going on or other things, and help us to know when those events are, and we'll try and get into them and do things. Yeah.
Have a military connection?
Not really. All of our military moved away during the pandemic at Hydrant, so we don't right now. If you have one, that would be great. Yeah, we do not have a military connection at this moment. We will not do a food truck because the whole point is to sit down and talk with people. So food trucks are great, don't get us wrong, but the whole point is to have interaction and build relationship. And so a food truck doesn't really achieve that goal. It's just the same as running them through a line at the food pantry for us. Not saying they're not great in other settings, but for what we want to achieve.
Well, like if you have that Stone Creek Park, where all the different tables are, they have a shelter, and you can get out there and speak.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, Candy. We might very well be,
Not so much in us utilizing a food truck to try to do what we're going to do ultimately, but if there was a food truck rodeo or a large group of people and there was access to a food truck to use as a pop-up type event, then yes, that would be great. And that's also a great idea, because food truck ralliers are a completely different type of people, and they get excited in ways that a lot of ordinary people don't, if you've never been around those kinds of events. So that's a great idea. And I can tell you, being an old restaurant guy, I love food trucks and I think they're great. So I don't want you to think we're shooting that down.
Right.
But part of what intrigued me about the restaurant when I was talking to Liz about it from the very first conversation was, my new role in life is to help with leading people to Jesus. And I don't have a big track record on that, I brought my daughters to church, but that was about it. And a lot of times I'd drop them off because I didn't want to cramp their style. So in doing that, I want to create something that I'm comfortable with, or more comfortable with. And sitting down in a restaurant and handing somebody something good to eat, or having a large group be there, that's when I'm doing my thing, So the food truck kind of is, you're all out. I mean, you're there for one reason, and it's all ended up as revenue. So yes, I love food trucks, but not necessarily at this point. Now, may something evolve into it? Yes. So I don't want you to think that we don't think about food trucks, because I think about everything food.
Any questions? Our hope was to be able to answer any questions. If you had any that you were dying to know, if you haven't already messaged me or anything, any questions? Luann's got one. I know that face.
got one, but I don't really know how to put it. So on the 4 ways to pay. So like when you come in the restaurant, there'll be some kind of sign somewhere that says that.
Yeah.
But to me, if I'm going through the line and you ask me which way am I going to pay, I may be a little bit embarrassed.
Can I answer
Yeah,
that?
go ahead. Yeah.
So, and I've thought about that same thing. And a lot of it was put to rest the first time I went through the line in Raleigh. But I'll say this to you. Do you remember the first time you went to a restaurant that had one of those Apple systems, a tablet pay program, and you're scratching your head and you're like, what's tap? And then they turn around and you got to decide which one of the tips you want to give and all this kind. That's kind of awkward that first time. Well, when you go through the line in a 4-way to pay atmosphere, it's very indiscriminate because the prices are posted. So if you're a payer, you've ordered off the menu before and you've got your card ready. For the next step, somebody says, well, I wanted to volunteer for this. Oh, great. So what they do is they give you they print you out a receipt, a little ticket, and it just says when and how you'd like to volunteer. And if you haven't gone through the volunteer process at that point, then the beauty of it is there's somebody just like you that's working their 2 or 4 hour block, and they come out and they've been trained, and their dialogue is adapt at explaining to you how easy it is for you to volunteer to pay. And if you can't pay, and it's just simply a meal that's been paid by Pay It Forward, then that's also done very indiscriminately, and that's the beauty of the thing. At no point in the time that I was there, and I really watched, I wanted to see those hard moments, because we've all been places and we know that the poor guy coming in off the street, all he wants is a cup of coffee, and he's tired of having to ask and beg for it, but there's really no other way for him to get a cup of coffee unless the person behind the counter recognizes it and says, hey, would you like a cup of coffee? Need a drink? Because with us, when Nicole and I, we had our restaurant, it happened all the time because we were downtown. So you learn to facilitate them through just so they don't hold up whatever, because it becomes a very uncomfortable time for the guy behind them and the guy in front of them. And we were in business long before Pay It Forward. So there was never anything like that. Now, a lot of times you had somebody who'd say, let me get him a cup of coffee or something like that. But it still was very uncomfortable. So the job is, and because you're going into it so intentionally from the start, that the discomfort's taken away.
Yeah.
So, and I was so impressed with how they do it. And by letting other volunteers handle it, it is so great. And they have volunteers from people who don't have, they literally live under a bridge. Mm-hmm. And then there's volunteers there that come in, and this guy's run both Fortune 500 companies, and he runs a very successful realty company. And so when it comes to talking, he is spot on, and he can run through the process talking to benefactors or talking to the lady who's wearing her entire wardrobe and all she wants is something warm. And the cool thing about it is they're also not just handing them frozen Salisbury steak or the worst thing you could think of to have for a meal. We're talking about, nice. Yes, I'll have the turkey breast on sourdough bread with
avocado.
Munster cheese and avocado. And
there's dignity in it.
Right, the whole thing, and they're sitting there eating the same thing you are, and you're just thinking,
Do they verbally, is there a cash register and they verbally ask everybody when you get there?
Yeah, so what they do is when you go in, they say, how would you like to pay? 1, 2, 3, or 4? 3. Or they also have, what do you call the little tokens?
Well, the tokens are actually called tuits. If you guys have ever heard of a tuit, and it used to be called when you get around to it. Yeah. And it was a big thing back in barber shops and stuff like that, where it was good for something free that they could give you, and you wouldn't lay it down, you'd put it in your pocket because it's about the size of a quarter or a 50-cent piece, and it says on there what it's for. Well, what they've done in Raleigh is they've taken these, and to get started, one of their huge benefactors is Blue Cross Blue Shield, sponsored I don't know how many of these. And so they have meal tuits that you can come in and you can buy those tuits, so you have them to give to people.
So like when people pay it forward, they can go give those to people, or when they walk in the door, hey, if you don't want to pay,
Right.
here's this. And so it's like you're throwing a coupon down for a free meal. Nobody knows how or why you got it, but it's a way to pay.
So how do you keep up with the pay it forward one?
So
I mean, like, do you
It's-
give the person, like you just said, somebody that does that, you giving the
You-
two to them?
you can if they want it, yeah, so if you want to come in and say, hey, I want to pay it forward, but I would like a token to pay it forward, so you could walk out and hand it to somebody on the street, you could do that. But it's kind of like a church budget. It's all on trust. So we're going to, at the end, we'll balance the budget and God will make it happen. It's kind of like that. We won't be keeping tally or score with, okay, we have 7 free meals today. It's just all on balancing the budget and averages and that kind of thing.
But I will tell you that it's tracked as good as they can. Everything is tracked.
Yeah.
And that way, you may have an uncanny Tuesday where somebody came in and was blown away, and they just give you a large donation. Well, it's taken it as income for that day's business.
Yeah.
But it balances out 8 months from now, because suddenly you're doing 30 free meals a day or partially paid for meals a day. So they do it kind of based on how it's, at the end of the day, where your profit margin is.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, running it as a nonprofit, this place in Raleigh, they're doing $1.4 million a year in revenue, and 70% of their numbers are all positive.
Yeah.
So that's a tremendous return. I know there's plenty of restaurants that are supposed to be for profit in Goldsboro that would love to be running on a 70-30 margin. It
So
just
that
doesn't happen.
30% is made up of the friends who have decided to give on a monthly basis, grants, or businesses such as Blue Cross Blue Shield who come in and supplement the other 30%. They have a few more paid volunteers than we would, or paid people than we would. We would only pay 2 people to start with, Mike part-time, and then one other person to run the business. And so everything would completely stay within the business. There's no profit at all.
Exactly, and I'll just say, we're projecting that.
Yeah.
We would love to hit the ground and say, hey, we thought we were going to be able to do it this way, but just because of the way we're going into it, we know we're going to have some other people.
Yeah.
And we're not afraid to have, people that are our regular employees. We don't shy away from that, because the beauty of running this type of business is, and that's what another impressive side of the business, and I'm glad we've evolved into that, but they only pay living wages. So every person, and they have 7 people per shift on staff. They don't serve dinner, they only do lunch and breakfast. But they have 7 people that are paid. So imagine, they're paying 7 living wages, which now is, I think, $16 an hour is what somebody has said is a living wage. Plus they get insurance. So we're talking about pretty aggressive, a business where they're going out there. I know when I've done restaurants, it's always been, how little can I get going in, and will evolve coming out. But this is one of those things where they don't hire another person to do a particular job until they can do it. So there's a lot of good things about it, and that's the only way I think that we can do this. We utilize volunteers, we feed people, which is what we're doing already. We know what happens on Saturday mornings here, and we feed people. we're just doing it on a whole different scale, and that's the beauty of it.
What's the percentages of the pay for, pay least, pay,
Oh, Liz won't get paid from.
You
from
mean the
table.
four categories?
percentages that the restaurant that y'all visited?
I have them, Mike.
Go ahead.
I have, hold on one second, I'm pulling them up. They gave us their percentages, I just gotta find them, 2 seconds.
She's looking for that. I'm going to say one other thing that I think is a very important point on how some of our philosophy is a little bit different than some of the things that we've heard about from them. They went in, they took 4 years to get the doors open on their project. I'm 57. I don't have 4 years. You know, I want to do it ASAP. And right. So, and you know, I think it's all about momentum. I wonder in 4 years, how are you able to keep that momentum? You know, how are you able to get up today and say, okay, I'm going to go see, now today I get to go see D through F, because yesterday I saw A through B, you know. I don't know how their mindset was, but in doing that, they are raising money. They're going after big time capital investors that scratch their head and say, we'll think about it. It's a great idea. Let us talk to our board. Okay? I think that we're gonna go to people who are gonna reach in their back pocket and pull out their checkbook, and it may be $10, it may be $100, it may be a phenomenal blessing. But I think that that's how we're going to build this, because just as last night with 6 people in the room and we're talking about it, tonight we've got however many people in the room. It's more than I ever thought, but it's simply the fact that it's the faith in what we're doing, because I hope every single person tonight, when they walk out of here, is going to tell somebody, and I fully believe they will, at least one person, and that's how it grows. And so the first thing I learned after becoming the executive pastor, and I'm looking for the person who executive pastor, I learned about exponential growth. So this is a great opportunity for exponential growth to really do great things. And so Liz should have her stuff now.
Well, no, I don't have them yet. I'm trying, I'm sorry.
And that's something you were talking
Absolutely.
about, the volunteer aspect of it and being a part of it. One thing that really stood out to me when I talked with you guys.
Wait, hold on one second, I'm sorry. This is Denise, she is also on our board, so like she is like a part of this, just so you know.
So, is that there will be families that are committed to coming, like I'm gonna go eat dinner there once a week and be connecting with people there. It's not just about, so volunteering, maybe serving and doing all those things to share, but also sitting down at the table with people and having conversation and getting to know people and building those relationships.
It's that whole commitment. You know, I just think that, and I'll throw this in, and they're not here tonight, but our most conservative board member, y'all are wondering who come to Hydrant, who I'm talking about. The first thing they said to me, or first thing he said to us was, my family will come out there, and we want to be able to be there to have those people have a place to sit with when they come in, and they need that. I'm done. It's a mic drop situation right now for me. You know, if it doesn't happen, we're already connecting in the way that God wants us to connect to this. So, you know, that's what gets me going about this whole thing and keeps me every day. You know, it's the other stuff I got to do now, all those other church chores, and I can't just be thinking about this all the time. It's overwhelming in such a great way. So if I ever seem distracted to anybody here, I am. But ask me what I'm thinking about, and I'll share it with you. So
I do have those numbers somewhere. I apologize that I can't seem to find them. But I do remember her saying that 70% of their budget is paid for by restaurant income, and then the other 30% is done by other avenues. So, but I don't remember the breakdown. Once I find that, I can get that information out.
My notes are a little bit of a mess.
know any you people that would be wanting to, get it for nothing,
Yeah.
a free meal and some who
Right.
work for it.
And I think I was actually impressed with the breakdowns because I was watching them as well, because that's me. I'm that creep in the restaurant that's watching every single thing. And I knew when I went in, I immediately could see they had a coffee program in there, and they have a barista. That's one of their paid positions. And so when I sat down with her, and I don't know how green she thought we were, but I said, so the coffee is paying a lot? And she smiled. She said, yes. And that's really it. A homeless person doesn't come in and say, I want a caramel maki lackey, whatever. I can't even say it because I don't know. But my point is they don't come in and order $7 coffees and say, I can't pay. Now, they don't lose their dignity if they do. But the profit that's gotten from the sale of those type of products compounded, and I'm sure that at the end of the day, that's where a lot of their sales are coming from. That's making a big gap for them. So it's just like any other place. You got to have your hook. And we've thought the place that we're looking at, coffee was a natural thing that I had already thought about. And the main thing for that was it would stop Liz from having to drive to Starbucks. So
Okay, unless you can start serving strawberry acai refreshers, that's not happening.
right, see, so
You're
no,
good. Go for
me
it.
too.
Every Friday, I go to Bethel Church, and they have a recovery group meeting.
Yeah.
They feed about 100 people. They're all people that are homeless. So how they tactfully take it, when you're in line, they ask you, would you like to make a contribution or pass?
Yeah.
And that is the best way to put it, because if some of those don't have money. So for some people, they do ask for $5 or whatever you want to pay. Some of those pay big, and then some of them don't pay. And what they do is give you a little raffle ticket, and when you go to the go to the food area, you just give them a ticket.
Yeah,
And that's
it's awesome.
And what they do is there's someone
Did you win?
that is recording every ticket, whatever contribution they made or whether it's free. So that's how they keep up.
Yeah. And Square Register will help to keep track of a lot of that, because you can do like the free sale, no sale, volunteers. You can label those within it to help keep track. So we could on the fly look at it, but they said the way that they do it, they just don't have to.
They're really fortunate where they've got like a man that has the needs.
Yeah.
Donates the needs.
Yes. And we're working with trying to get, we've gotten connected with some farmers for farm to table, where we're hoping that a lot of stuff will be donated for it. We have one farmer who is on board already, and so working to create more of that availability as well.
Do you know, when you first start out, do you know, like you said, they only serve breakfast and lunch, what's our plan?
Last we talked, and all of these kind of specific details are very open to whatever the Lord leads. So don't hold us to the wall on these things. But last we talked, we also were going to start with lunch and breakfast. Correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yes. Just so that we're not overwhelming ourselves. Breakfast has the highest profit ratio and some of those things, and so it would give us a better opportunity to kind of launch and get started. We would be closed on Sundays as of this moment, just because the main staff would be hydrant staff, and so we have to run a church as well, but that all is open to change as the Lord leads, but that's currently what we expect.
And also with us, doing a lunch and breakfast staple, it leaves us open at dinner time so that we can go out, because there's specific places in town that we know there's a population of hungry people.
Yeah.
So if we focus on that, and I think that's a strong way to focus, Let's feed where those people are. Let's go into their neighborhoods. And with that intention, I think it'll come back as we decide that we need to have a dinner type draw. I mean, I can tell you that we've had visions of, Scott being the live entertainment and stuff like that, so.
Always.
And that's why Scott's here tonight, so we wanted to tell him that, and.
Start learning balloon art from Dana.
But and the fact is that it's, the door's open. So we know what we want to do. We want to feed as much as we can. We don't want to be a soup kitchen.
Right.
So we have to conduct ourselves appropriately for that. And I think one of the greatest things that we're going to get out of this, other than just knowing that we're helping the people that need it most, is the fact that it's going to open up so many doors as to how people really think how they can help in the same way.
And our intention would be to make extra every day so that we can go out into Tent City and downtown and those places. It would be an intentional effort every day. So supper would be served, just not physically in the restaurant. It would be an intentional effort to make meals and go to those specific locations.
Now, are you planning on keeping the pantry, once a month pantry, once the restaurant?
John's like, please. Yes, as of this exact moment, unless John feels led by the Lord, the pantry will remain the same. Now, keep in mind, their pantry distribution is the third Saturday of the month as a large distribution, but Mike and I are available for emergency cases throughout the week at any time. So if a need arises at the pantry, at the table of, hey, this person needs more than just this quick dinner, or this quick lunch or whatever, they can then, the table can give me a call at the office and say, hey, we need some, or we had talked about if there's room, there would be a space that we have some food, some groceries available, that kind of thing. And so it would be as fluid as it is now. Right now, there's no plan to extend extra distribution date unless John is feeling something from the Lord.
And I'll let you know also, one of the biggest campaigns that we're working on right now that looks like it's going to happen is probably a reconnect with the North Carolina
National Food Bank.
National Food Pantry connection. And so that's going to be magnificent. It's not going to be good. It's going to be magnificent.
It'll stock us up, and that will expand our Backpack Buddies program, and it will also expand. Backpack Buddies is where we feed. We actually feed 5 students at Wayne School of Engineering right now. Every single weekend, we give them enough food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner on Saturday and Sunday, and then we also give them dinner on Friday with snacks. And we're not talking little snacks. Like the last time I bought for it, for the pantry, they got like whole jars of pickles and a box of cereal and like some gourmet soup, and we're feeding them teenager food, So currently we feed 5 students because that was the need. At the thing we've done 15 and 25 students in the past. But that will expand hopefully into Goldsboro High School, and then maybe even into other places. But all the connections with the National Food Bank would expand that, and would expand into a 60-year and older food distribution program as well. So all of it just giving us more food to serve either at the table or at the pantry. Yes, yeah. So the reason that we started with Wayne School of Engineering is there was a connection with a student there. Actually, it's our intern, and they called us because their plan that they had fell through, and so then we just picked up and then just kept going. So then the natural progression is into the building next door. Goldsboro High School is right connected with that, so that's the natural progression. But our hope is to expand down to down 111 here, and hopefully eventually throughout all of Wayne County.
It's typically administered in the schools through the school's Key Club,
Yes.
which is Kiwanis, the Kiwanis Club, just a junior club for that.
for anonymity, we can't just go in
Right,
and do it.
I can't go in and say, hey, I'm Mike Sharon, we want to feed all your kids that need it. But what I've done through Zoe, I'll drop her name, she,
It's Mike's daughter.
she now has connected with her Key Club official and let her know that, hey, I'm graduating this year, but the Hydrant wants to not only do us, but they want you to make a connection for them next door. And because we know that, and I don't think any church does it intentionally, but I would just hate to be that kid who comes home with a backpack of free food and open it up and it's potted meat and saltine crackers. And I mean, Liz really does do a good job of going in there and pilfering in John's food pantry and getting all the cool stuff out. And, you know.
I really do. I
like,
take all the cool
there's,
stuff.
I can tell you there's been Chex Mix over there, like this, the plain Chex rice cereal. The kids don't get that. Yeah. Well, okay.
There's some
let
more
us-
there for you.
Yeah. But, so we really do, we are intentional about that. And when we pick up the 60-plus crowd, we'll be intentional with that kind of stuff.
We
And,
want to bring as much dignity to the situation as possible. You know, there's already so much dignity stripped away when you're in those kind of situations. And like you said, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to ask for that hand up. What's even more embarrassing when you get a bunch of expired food and a bunch of rotten stuff, like that doesn't do you any good. And so we want to do this well. We don't want to expand so far that we can't give them quality food. Like we have Mike, who owned a restaurant in town, and literally on Facebook I see all the time, hey, would you bring back your restaurant? Well, yeah, I'm going to get him to bring back the restaurant, right? And so we've got Scott, who cooked for Highway 55, who's then going to come and cook for us. You know, we've got quality stuff. We don't want to do this and remove more dignity. And so we do it slowly as we can handle it and as the Lord provides.
And you know, we're fortunate that we have people who donate that just do a great job of putting things together. You know, recently we received Ziploc bags full of awesome snacks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you just don't know. They know because they've got kids and grandkids. But it's so much, when somebody comes into the food pantry and they need food right now, and we ask the question, what do you need? Do you need ready-to-eat stuff, or can you cook? Because so many people don't understand that. They say, here's a box of food. Well, they get home, and half the stuff they can't do anything. I can't cook rice. I can't soak beans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all that food bank stuff that, you know, if you have a kitchen, you can do something with. So when you get really cool snacks, when you get the person who gives and who knows how to give, and there's hygiene products in there, I mean, it means the biggest thing in the world for a person to get a new toothbrush and some toothpaste that's not, you know, zany mint or something like that, you know, that's something legit that everybody else uses, and some real deodorant and things like that. People really, they get excited about that, like Scott gets excited playing with. Yeah. But, so enough of,
That was
I
a
didn't mean to
long,
just-
drawn-out answer
yeah.
for yes, but, you know, I feel like it was all good
Right.
information.
But I want you guys to know that every facet of everything that we try to think about is with intentional thought. We're not just checking a box or passing off a thought between me and Liz. I mean,
We're
we
intentional.
really do think about what our plan is for this. And we wouldn't have the success we have with the backing from above if we weren't doing it that way, I don't think. We're not shooting from the hip.
Well, sometimes we are.
Speak for yourself.
Any
I've
other
done
que-
enough of that.
Any other questions? These have been great. And I appreciate these questions because they help us. Like, I've been making mental notes of what we need to add to the presentation, like those numbers and the detailed things about how you pay. Those are great things. And so this really helps me to know how to say things.
Just had a comment about you progressing into other school systems.
Mm-hmm.
You can always contact the social workers. Is how we get our backpack buddy information.
Gotcha. And so does your church do backpack buddies as well? I want to connect with you when we're done here. Yes, that's great. Yeah. We didn't know of any other churches. There's no official National Food Bank program here, and so didn't know what schools are being served. So that's awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry, what? Okay, awesome.
I talked with the pastor of New Hope Springs just the other day, and we're supposed to have lunch.
Perfect. Look at that. And that's something that we're really passionate about is this is not just something God has called Hydrant to. God is wanting to do something huge in Goldsboro. So we have several churches represented here tonight. It's not just Hydrant, and it's not going to be just Hydrant's project. It is unity of his church, and that's what we want to see happen. I was just telling the boards last night, Hydrant's board and the tables board, there's 120,000 people in Wayne County. It's estimated that there's 300 churches. That means all 300 churches need 400 people in their church. We don't have room in this little sanctuary for 400 people, which means if we want to see the county change, we need all the churches. And so there's no use pretending and not even pretending, but putting up walls. There's no use in doing any of that. We are about joining together and doing this together because we want to see Wayne County changed. We want to see 111 changed. We want to see Goldsboro changed. And so we need all the churches in order to make that happen. And so it's a group effort. It is a group effort. So I love
Ways to take and make that happen.
four ways. Any other questions, thoughts, insight? Think we're crazy? I mean, about this? Don't tell me about the other times.